Sitting on a big speed figure on this edition of the National Racing Report. What a lineup of 11 races we are set to bring you right here on MSG Plus. It has gotten dark outside. It's bright here in the studio. We're glad you're with us. Jason Blewitt, Andy Serling, Richard Migliore. The crew is all here. And what a wood day it was at Aqueduct.
Yeah, we got a lot of terrific races to talk about. I just hoping that you and I have some disagreements coming up because we haven't talked about any of these races together.
Yeah, so we are going in cold, and I'm sure there will be some disagreements. I thought it was a good day of racing all around the country.
So did I.
91st running of the TwinSpires.com Grade 1 $1 million Wood Memorial. That's where we're going first. We've got 4 graded stakes at the Big A. Let's check it out. 100 Kentucky Derby points to the winner. 3 horses sent off at 2-to-1 odds, and we pick up this field of 7 from the gate.
Well, interesting that Toasting Master went out to the lead, and I thought Daredevil did a good job settling just off him. I think he maybe was exposed today for his distance limitations.
No question about it. You know what? He wasn't sharp. Maggie didn't love him in the paddock. He didn't have that oomph from the start, and he has distance limitations, and I just wonder if he's the same horse he was last year. Clearly, Joel Rosario was under instructions to take Frosted back, and he resented it a little bit, and Joel did a good job with him, but I got to tell you something. I don't care about anybody's trips, and we'll talk about El Kabir did not have a good trip either. Frosted was just the best horse.
I agree with that. He was the best horse, and he won easier than the margin of victory would indicate. I thought he was very confident when he did get him to settle. You could see right about here, I think Joel Rosario knows he's got this race won.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, I think that El Kabir got caught a little between a rock and a hard place between horses, and Lieutenant Colonel made that big move up the inside, and he ended up having absolutely nothing. He kind of got lost a little behind horses, but to be honest with you, Richie, he was third best regardless.
Yeah, I think he was third best. I think he would have been closer, with a different trip, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I thought Tensendor ran a tremendous race and kind of middle moved into it and looked like, but he looks like the kind of horse that's what he needs to do because he's a little bit one pace, and you're not going to hold him up and have him like sprint home.
It's been great watching him mature over the winter. I mean, this is a true inner track horse. He was against the track. We talked about in the Gotham with a 3-wide trip and didn't run that badly. And I like that he could put himself a little bit more in the game. And Foster was a comfortable winner, Jay, but Tensendor ran well.
And George Weaver's banked a few $100,000 with this New York bred now, or at least put him over the 6-figure mark running second in this race and hit the board in the Withers, was up close and showed up and danced every dance, and got a lot of respect for the New York bred. But Joel Rosario at this point, pretty confident aboard Frosted. It looked like he never really asked him for his best.
And time matters a lot, and I like to see the speed figures before having absolute opinions, but this race went 1.8 seconds faster than the Demoiselle, which is basically 11 lengths.
Yeah.
So this was a fast race. That one we'll talk about a little bit later, but I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse or not, but you have to be encouraged by this performance.
Well, I thought his gallop out, and I watched him on the way out, I thought his gallop out indicated that the distance won't be a problem, and that's something that I've always questioned with this horse. Now, he did have a little bit of a throat surgery, a very minor thing, and he was able to come back. He actually lost no training and run this good. Maybe he needed to be able to get that little bit extra air.
I'll tell you something. He still needs to settle a little bit more. It was tough. Joel had a tough time getting him to settle, and he still moved him into the race with a 1/2 to 5/8 to go. Do you think he'll be able to settle more in a faster-paced Derby?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I just think when they go faster, he's not going to pull as hard. He's going to be able to settle better that way. What I thought was encouraging today, in spite of the slow pace, was that he was able to make that elongated run. And that's what you want to see from a horse going to the Derby. You want a horse that has the ability to either make 2 distinct runs or a long extended run.
Well, he's put himself very much in the conversation at the least.
Yeah, he was Kieran McLaughlin's top 2-year-old going into 2015. It worked out here Saturday on a day Kieran McLaughlin won 3 races and had a nice maiden 3-year-old by Distorted Humor break his maiden, in fact, at Keeneland. And that's where we're heading next. It'll be the centerpiece of the spring meet, the $1 million Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. All eyes on Carpe Diem, sitting outside right now for Todd Pletcher in another lopsided victory.
I'm not this horse's biggest fan, so in fairness, take my opinion with a grain of salt. It might be just the prep you wanted. A relatively comfortable win by a horse. He was asked in here. I don't know how fast a race it was. 6 seconds slower than the Phillies at 1 1/16. He wasn't dazzling, but maybe that's what you want going to the Derby.
Yeah, I like this horse. He's obviously very talented. He really has never done anything wrong. Even his second in the Breeders' Cup was good. But you're not going to get this kind of trip in the Kentucky Derby, sitting out second in the clear, completely unhindered by anything, and a 1/2 in 48. Now, that being said, he did show he could overcome some adversity in that Breeders' Cup, where he did run on to be second.
But Frosted ran such a better race than him. He certainly doesn't appear to be a horse that's going to have distance limitations. I get he has his fans, and I'm not going to say I like him. Certainly, he's more likely to win the Derby than a lot of horses. Just don't put me in his camp that thinks he's going to win the Kentucky Derby.
Well, I think the ability is there. I just don't know that he's going to be able to set up with a difficult trip and finish the way he did today.
And the other thing is he's just not beating horses that have done anything on the racetrack. Now, listen, I'm not going to say that Tensender has done some amazing things, but I want to see the speed figures come out, but I'm still not on his side, but I haven't been in his whole career.
I like how he looks physically, though. Physically, he's a very big, scopy, rangy horse that has a big, effective stride. So that he has going for him. He's another horse, like American Pharoah to me. I mean, he's not as brilliant or as fast as American Pharoah, but a horse that needs to show me he can overcome a really tough trip.
And I like that you look at Frosted. He's had a good campaign of races that have done him some good.
Right.
I don't know what Carpe Diem got out of these 2 easy wins.
2 easy wins. One at Tampa Bay off a lengthy layoff, and he cruised home an easy winner in the Bluegrass for Todd Pletcher.
Yeah, I'm going to say he was the third most impressive of the winners because we're about to see Dortmund, and he was pretty good.
And unless American Pharoah runs out of his mind this coming weekend in the Arkansas Derby, I do believe we are looking at the favorite for this year's Run for the Roses and the unbeaten Dortmund, who has just, he's battled back in races. He's had to dig down deep, and he's also won convincingly, and he's got that high cruising speed.
I don't think it says a lot about what was behind him, but that's a fast first quarter. Here's my question for you, though, Richie. They're not learning anything about him as far as rating behind horses. I want to see what happens. He gets a little dirt kicked in his face, but man, I like this horse.
Well, you know what you gotta like about him is that he's shown that durability, that toughness. He's been in some dogfights with some pretty talented horses.
Yep.
You think about Firing Line going on to Sunland and how impressive he was. This day, he had this field over a barrel from the start.
They never even threatened him. He just flicked them off like they were a fly.
He was a man amongst
the
boys.
turn.
Everybody was whipping and slashing by the 3/8 pole.
And now I want to look at the track. Was speed particularly good? It certainly didn't seem to be the case when we watched the earlier race because we'll see their Santa Anita Oaks, and the horse that won, the favorite, came from well back. I just wish I had seen this horse come from the pack and behind horses, but I don't know what there is to not like about him.
He's fast enough, though, that he could get away in the first flight of horses in the Derby and allow an American Pharoah or somebody else that's going to entertain him and set up to get a trip third or fourth because he's got that kind of speed and the ability to stay on.
I got to tell you, I agree with Jason, what Jason said about him. He's supposed to be the favorite. And maybe American Pharoah, I know he's got a big following, and maybe he runs off against a bunch of horses that are inferior to him in the Arkansas Derby. And listen, he's a good horse. But this horse, who's been better than him this year?
Nobody. And he's, granted he hasn't kind of sat in mid-pack or closed from far back, but looking at those dogfights with Firing Line, and they got a bunch of races into this horse as a 2-year-old. In fact, he ran 3 times in a short amount of time as a 2-year-old, had foundation last year. He's the complete package, Dortmund.
I know I'm going to be betting against him, but right now, I just feel like he's the horse to beat.
Well, I agree he's a complete package, and he's a run at Churchill Downs, and he did come from off the pace in his first start. Now, I got to be honest, I never saw the replay of that race, so I don't know if he actually took dirt that day or he was out in the clear the whole way. But you got to think, with his natural speed and his tenacity, he's the horse you want going forward at this moment.
I want him going forward somewhere. I don't care what he does in the Kentucky. He can run 15th in the Derby. He's a good horse.
No, this is a Dortmund fan club right here. As we send it to break, we've got 3-year-old fillies coming up in the Gazelle and throughout the country as well. Stay with us here on MSG+. Spring is in the air. We are on the main track. We've got the new voice of the New York Racing Association, Larry Colmus, upstairs in the booth. And, of course, the Taj Mahal of North American racing. We're less than a month away from opening day at beautiful Belmont Park. 4 weeks, a little less than 4 weeks out from that first Saturday in May, and there's no place like Kentucky Derby Day at beautiful Belmont Park. In fact, we'll have 3 stakes on that program. The Westchester is the one I'm really looking forward to.
I'm just looking forward to getting back to Belmont turf racing, but you know what? There's so much good racing to come over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, the rest of our lives. I can't wait for any of it.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year to be a racing fan, for sure.
And I have no desire to do anything else with my life than just going to the racetrack every day. Can't complain. Let's move on to the Gazelle now. 3-year-old fillies, $400,000 purse. 100 Kentucky Oaks points to the winner. I'll send it to you guys off the break, in which Puka from the rail was aggressively handled.
Yeah, What I want to talk about most with you, Rich, in this race is what you think horses behind the winner got out of the race and what you think of them going forward. Because once the 6, Jacaranda, didn't break and she ended up chasing outside, the race was pretty much handed to Condo Commando again, who we know is a terrifically talented horse.
Sure.
But once again, everything went her own way.
Yeah, I mean, she's galloping outside a filly that had to be used to show that kind of speed.
That's not a speed. She
That's
had to use her. She had to go against her to keep her honest.
Yeah, and to, you know, we always appreciate that when a rider uses his rail position and is aggressive and goes forward.
Good ride by
so
Franco.
I think Franco did a great job there. Condo Commando, she glides to the lead. I know this race wasn't fast, and visually it was not impressive. But my question is, in the lane, she's trying to drift out. You see Joel Rosario is constantly, kind of correcting her and keeping her attention. Is it that she's winning so easy that she's looking towards the inside and goofing off, or is there something else going on?
I don't know. You would know that much better than me, Richie. All I know is this race was a lot slower than the Wood, and listen, I like this horse. She's demonstrated to be a good horse. The problem is the only time she didn't have everything go her own way, she finished 4th in the Brizette. I'm willing to give her a pass. It was a sloppy track. But I need to see her win one of these races when she gets some stones thrown in her path. What about Wonder Gal?
Well, Wonder Gal makes this kind of big, wide middle move, and she does flatten out. Now, you could take it two ways. She needed the race, which she probably did.
That's for sure.
Or is she a little bit distance limited?
That's the question. Is she going to be a Sweet Reason type that we want to bet back in the Acorn? We know she's a good horse. I think this was a good race for Wonder Gal as a prep race.
Yes.
The question is, I wouldn't want her in the Oaks. I'd love to see her wait for the Acorn and be patient with her. She's good enough to be in there. I think if Puka is in a race like the Oaks or wherever, in theory, she can let other horses fight out in the front end. She can make her run and be in a more comfortable style. But having said all that, if I think Condo Commando isn't necessarily as good because the race was slower, I still have to recognize that Puka still ran 2 1/3 to 2.5 seconds slower than Frost did.
But she's going to get a different setup
Yes.
in a race like the Oaks because there's going to be more pace. And then she doesn't have to be the one to keep anybody honest or do any of the dirty work. She can sit back there, much like the third-place finisher did here. A big long shot.
Sucking up
just
on the
sit
inside.
back,
Yep.
drop back, allow her just to run late. And,
Princess of Somar a few years ago.
Yeah, she's a horse who can get lucky in the Oaks. It'll be interesting if Bill Mott, who also has a Cotty's Phaeton, who's got a lot of speed, switched his barn. If she's in the Kentucky Oaks, she'll ensure a fast pace. You got to like Condo Commando. Whether or not that means she's going to be a Kentucky Oaks winner is another story, but she's already got a heck of a resume.
Yeah, for a filly that broke her maiden in her debut for $75,000 in a maiden claiming race, we think Michael Dove is still probably breathing a sigh of relief. Rudy Rodriguez, a big Saturday with 2 stakes wins, will have Dad's caps coming up in the Carter. Larry Jones, however, we know he's going to the Kentucky Oaks with I'm a Chatterbox, and he's also got the winner of the Ashland as 55-year-old jockey Kerwin Clark gets his first ever Grade 1 victory.
Yeah, I'm a Chatterbox is clearly the favorite and deserving favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. This horse is a nice horse, Lovely Maria, but all she really did was flatter I'm a Chatterbox in this race. Peace and War was 5-2 in here, finished last, hadn't runs the Alcibiades, should have been 52-1.
That's interesting.
Well, she won that race because there was a meltdown.
Well, yeah,
it
because
fell
they went
apart.
45 and change.
Just the slow pace. I mean, Angela Renee runs second somewhat by default. I just think this horse shows you how good I'm a Chatterbox is.
Right, and to me, I look at I'm a Chatterbox as the division leader and the 100% definite Kentucky Oaks favorite. There's some nice fillies in the division. It's a pretty, to be honest about it, it's a pretty average group of racehorses at this point.
This horse is okay, though. I mean, I'll be honest. She's running figures in the mid-80s. She only ran a little bit slower in final time relative terms to Carpe Diem. So there's nothing not to like about her going forward. She's just not as good as her stablemate. So if they both show up, she and I'm a Chatterbox in the Kentucky Oaks, I don't know how she's supposed to beat I'm a Chatterbox.
No, I agree with you. And it's interesting that Larry Jones always seems to find himself in these positions where he's got a couple of good fillies in the same year pointing for the Oaks. I mean, he split them up a few years ago. Obviously, 8 Bells ran in the Derby, and he won the Oaks the day before. I think both these fillies will run in the Oaks, but it seems like he has a knack with the ladies.
Oh, no, he does.
Definitely.
I mean, Proud Spell was so good. And we'll see. These are 2 pretty good horses. In a year, it's a good year to have a good 3-year-old
Right,
filly.
and I believe you can. Another Larry Jones, former Kentucky Oaks winner. winner with Rosie the Pravnik. And look, Larry will have at least a couple on that first Friday in May as we get on to the West Coast 3-year-old fillies in Saturday's Santa Anita Oaks. This was the Grade 1 that preceded Dortmund and the boys in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. And the filly that broke her maiden and spent at least a portion of the winter out at Laurel scored another dominant victory.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she was as impressive as Trevor Denman seemed to think during the call, because I wonder how the horses were running behind her. But you gotta like this horse.
You gotta like her. I mean, she hasn't done anything wrong ever. And she makes this kind of big move from last, inhales the field by the time they turn for home. I talk about Colts wanting to make that long run in the Derby. Well, the Oaks isn't so different, and this is the kind of filly that can do that as well. I mean, she was impressive. I don't know what she was beating, but wow.
She wasn't beating superstars, but she wasn't beating absolute bums. These horses are okay. They're low 80 horses, and she crushes them. And the other thing is, Richie, it's not like the race is falling apart. It's not like the dominoes are falling down and everybody's coming from behind. I mean, the speeds didn't really go anywhere, but nobody else made any kind of run in here, and she was off in her own race. This was a very nice performance by a promising horse.
Yeah, and to me, we were talking earlier, if I had one horse I could ride in the Kentucky Derby right now, it would be Dortmund. If I could have one filly I could ride in the Oaks right now, it would be this filly.
Yeah, no, I like her too. We'll see how she does. All these horses have to leave the comfortable confines of home,
but
including
that's the
Condo Commando.
You've got Condo Commando from the East Coast and Puka and a few others, and then you've got I'm a Chatterbox from the Midwest, and then you've got this filly by Curlin and Stellar Win, and you put them all together in the starting gate. That's what makes these races so great in early May.
No, there's no doubt about it, Jay. You're absolutely right. You watch these preps and the preps we've been watching. There's a whole bunch of interesting horses headed there. Yeah, they got to beat I'm a Chatterbox, but she's also got to bring her show on the road from Fairgrounds, and sometimes Fairgrounds can be a nice, comfortable confine for some horse, and maybe she won't be as good away from there.
The biggest thing for me, though, Dortmund, Bob Baffert knows how to win on the big day, knows how to win at Churchill Downs. John Sadler does not have a great record shipping into these things, and that, to me, is something that you have to look hard at. Guys that actually know how to go to a different place and win.
Well, I think that's a very good point, because you've got Larry Jones, we talked about, has done it. Sadler, and to be fair to Rudy, who's had a lot of success here, he hasn't really done it in the big stage either outside of New York. He's won some big races, but we know that Larry Jones can do it.
You want me to give Sadler a call? Maybe we can bump Victor Espinoza off Stella Winfield?
Be a little overweight.
No,
don't get upset when he hangs up on you.
All right, let's move on to the fantasy on that. No big field, in
Speaking
fact.
of fantasy.
This was, no kidding. This was the biggest group of 3-year-old fillies that we had over the past weekend. 11 went to the post, and this will be a mad scramble and dash to the finish line.
This is my kind of horse race, Richie. I love me a good meltdown. And they were cooking towards the front, and they were flying towards the end. And I thought the first, second horses might have moved a little soon, but they still held off the last mover.
Yeah, well, the last mover, didn't she do this a couple starts back at Tampa Bay also in the prep for the Tampa Bay Oaks?
She's the one who made that run. Yeah. I think I remember her, actually.
Yeah, and she's a filly. Shows she wants to lag back. She gets pace. At least she's going in the right direction at the finish.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to judge it by. I want to see the speed figures. You see a meltdown. You see three horses to wire together. My gut feeling is that none of these horses are superstars. They're going to win the Kentucky Oaks, but I thought it was still a fun horse race.
Oh, it was very entertaining. There was a lot of action early on in the race, a lot of action in the middle, and then you get this flying finish. Absolutely. That's what horse racing is about. We want to see these kind of battles out there.
No, it was a great day of racing between terrific horses and big performances and fun races. The public might want to think about stopping betting on Feathered.
Well, she was the big name coming in. Big purchase price, daughter of Indian Charlie. Todd Pletcher doesn't run many horses at Oaklawn, and I guess with her early speed, they just could not help themselves. She was below 5-2 in an 11-horse field and wound up checking in 7.
And she has now lost 5 consecutive races since riding a Gold Rail to victory. A horse that was so dressed up in a 9 3/4 length win that even Richard Migliore agreed with me you wanted to bet against her going forward, and you were right.
Well, that day, I mean, as slow as she went on the lead and on the best part of the track.
Brilliant minds here on the National Racing Report. We're not done yet. We wrap it up. We still have our own little pick 4 remaining. A few here at the Big A, and we're heading back to Keeneland, so stay with us. We're back. It's the Racing Report on MSG Plus. Let's get them in the gate. Saturday's 3-year-olds in the Grade 3, $300,000 Bayshore Stakes. Number 1, Lord Nelson. We really need to keep our eyes on him down the backstretch.
Yeah, I'm curious if Richie has any idea what happened to him. He seemed to get steadied a little bit, but he took himself out of the race. I bet the winner. I was lucky. Lord Nelson was best.
Lord Nelson was best. He gets in tight here. He's going to have to steady. Then the horse overreacts after he has to steady. And I think what happens is the kickback, the dirt, which is far different than the dirt in California, was hitting him in the chest. And when he checked, now he's further backwards, hitting him in the face, and he way overreacted.
Yeah, I mean, this really took him out of the race. Now, the favorite in the race, Ray for Rye, a very disappointing third, beaten almost 5 lengths. He lost the race when he didn't break sharply, Richie.
Yeah, no, he was out of the position that you thought he would have been in. That being said, I don't think anybody was better than Lord Nelson with the trouble he encountered.
No, I mean, Lord Nelson should have won this race by 3-4 lengths, and March should have been second. This was a very good ride by Rod Ortiz, and once again, Chad Brown wins his second straight Bayshore, both of them with turnbacks, the value of turnbacks, and March may have been second best, but what I like about him is it's his 4th start, and he has improved with every single start.
He has, and I think he was going back to what he wants to do,
right.
in that sprint. And to be honest, when he hit the front, he kind of, to me, wandered a little bit, like he lost his focus a little bit. And then when Lord Nelson loomed boldly, he kind of went on a little bit again. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't the best horse, Lord Nelson, but this horse, March, should deserve some credit. I thought he ran well.
I agree, and he comes out and joins him, and there was an inquiry, but you watched the head-on. There absolutely nothing happened. I'm not sure what they took so long looking at it, to be honest with you. But, you know, I even was saying to Chad Brown during the inquiry, I don't think you're going to come down. The only solace you should be if you come down, you ran the second best horse.
Ran the second best horse. And here is the incident on the backstage when Lord Nelson has to check. And he got to jump in there. And I think part of that was he was in tight and he overreacted. And then the dirt hit him in his face and it added to that overreaction. And if you want to watch the head-on of this in the stretch, Irad Ortiz did textbook coming out to a horse without going over that line. That's how you're supposed to do it. Go out to meet the challenge, but don't go past and make any sort of contact.
Could not agree more with you, Richie. I think Lord Nelson will probably go on and run in the Derby trial, which is now being run in Kentucky Derby Day, looking towards the Woody Stevens. He's a promising horse, and ready for ride. Will bounce back from this.
Yeah, no, he's a good sprinter and somebody we're going to hear from again for sure. And here is that head-on that we're talking about. And you can see he's
outside now.
5 horses from the rail. And he's going right-handed here. And you can see Lord Nelson's out about 2.5 paths away from him. Now he sees him. He actually looked there. You see Irad Ortiz take a quick peek.
He likes to look.
Goes to the left hand, peeks again. Now he's going to come out just a little bit. He's going to shift just enough. And right there, he didn't go past that point where you say it's a foul. That's textbook. When someone says race riding, that's what they're talking about.
He didn't hurt the horse at all. He just came out. That horse, Lord Nelson, never altered a single path.
No. Good move by Bob Baffert, though, calling that audible and even cutting Lord Nelson back. Scratched him, would have been favored in the $1 million Sunland Derby, but instead took a shot in the base.
Would have been second choice to firing line.
Right, all right. Well, second choice in a $1 million race, but they ran second here on Saturday. And cool to see 85 and a 50's younger half-brother get the win in the base. Sure. Of course, 85 and a 50 won that race a few years back in 2010 for Gary Contessa. Carter, speaking of repeat winners and brothers winning races, well, how about Dad's Caps becoming just the 6th horse in 115 runnings to take the Carter in back-to-back succession?
And a complete no-show by a lot of favorites here, and a sensational ride by Jose Ortiz on Dad's Caps. You can't ride a horse better than this.
Well, we just saw his brother Irad ride a real good race. Well, now we're watching him ride a tremendous horse race. And Dad's Caps is a confirmed speed horse. I didn't think he had the ability to come from behind and pass horses.
Or win.
Well, he got him to rate. He bowled his way out in between horses turning for him. He did everything right. I mean, the horse was good on the day, but let's give a lot of credit to Jose Ortiz and Rudy Rodriguez for coming up with the plan to take him back.
I agree. Everything worked out for him. He's a different horse. Give a little love to Green Grotto. A lot of claimers. The first 3 finishers all have run in claiming races.
Yep.
This was a nice hard hitters. I don't agree with the chart about Clearly Now. I don't think he broke poorly. I thought he broke fine. He just had no horse, as did a lot of horses here.
Yeah, he broke with it as good as he's ever broken
he
before.
He jumped out a little out of the race after the break.
Yeah,
he broke
and then he's going to keep up.
Right.
Yeah.
Inter-track trifecta sweep. All right, Dad's Caps, the former claimer in the Carter, and a repeat win. Madison is where we are going. We've got 2 more from Keeneland. Let's get it to the far turn run. Princess Violet, a popular New York bred Grade 1 win.
And this was a Grade 1 ride. Junior Alvarado settled her back when I thought she'd be stalking. He got to the inside, cut the corner, eased out, and she's a very nice filly. And give some credit to Mike Hushin and Linda Rice as well, who's trained training her now, but this race was won because of Junior Alvarado.
Absolutely. From the outside post to do what he did, get her back, drop in, save ground, never had to stop her momentum at all when he was able to come out and split horses. This was an absolutely sensational ride, and I agree with you. Let's give a lot of credit to Michael Hushin for the foundation that she had, and certainly Linda Rice taking over for him. But the other question I have for you, Barry Schwartz breeds good horses. This filly's by officer. Is this the best officer of all time?
It wouldn't take much.
Well, it's a good point, isn't it?
I said
You're
to
right.
Mick downstairs, I said, Barry Kay is one of the few guys that could breed a mare to officer and get a monster like Princess Violet. And by the way, a good effort in defeat from Stop Charging Maria, who had not run since last fall.
Totally agree. She ran very, very well, surprisingly well.
All right, let's get you back to Keeneland from the gate, in fact, with the Commonwealth Stakes. Number 2, Kobe's back. He's the gray horse, and keep your eye on him. I believe he's the number 2.
I guess he is. When you're a dead closer, blowing the brake doesn't matter that much. And truthfully, for Kobe's back, he didn't even break that badly. I think it cost about a half length.
Yeah, for him, that wasn't that bad. He still has a tendency to hop. His first step isn't forward. It's a little bit up in the air, and he hops. He settled. You could see how supremely confident, though, Gary Stevens was, even as far back as he here. He seemed very unconcerned, like, I know what I have underneath me.
Well, I'll tell you something. We talked about it when he finished behind Wild Dude. He ran sensationally in the San Carlos. I thought they made a bad move in not running in the Carter. I'm still not sure they couldn't have won the Carter, but they got the money here, so you can't say I was right. They made the right move. Hopefully we see him for the Met Mile, because I'll tell you something, he is starting to show and fulfill that promise that got derailed as a 3-year-old.
Well, they had paid almost $500,000. I mean, he's a son of Flatter who breathes sensationally as a 2-year-old, ton of issues, ton of layoffs, but again, he's got some untapped potential. It's good to have him back and healthy. And Mig, do you put any credence with him getting a race over the track with the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland later in the year?
You know, the track, I think, can change so much from spring to fall, different kind of weather. I don't know if maybe that was part of their reasoning to go there, that they're going to get a race over the track. It very well could be. For me, I don't think it has any bearing.
And the other thing is, what's he going to do? He's not a 2-turn mile horse. I would run him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint at 6 furlongs, to be honest with you. Sure. I think he can get there if there's enough pace in the race. We'll see what he does the rest of the year, but Kobe's back is back.
We've seen horses come from way back in the sprint before. I mean, think Dancing Spree, think that big gray horse of Janine Sahadi's years ago.
Oh, Lead to Justice.
Lead to Justice.
It's almost like he acted a little bad at the gate, but I'll tell you something. For Kobe's back, that break was good, and if he starts coming out of the gate okay, he's a little sluggish, but that doesn't mean that he's breaking poorly. He's just sluggish out of the gate. He found his stride. He's a much better horse this year.
And he found his stride basically after an 1/8 of a mile. You could see he was up underneath Gary Stevens, and that's why he was so confident.
Nice job by Peter taking over this horse.
Real nice job. Good to see Gary Stevens on Bluegrass Day winning a major graded stake. Not the first time that's ever happened, and we hope $1.5 million in the Metropolitan Handicap will be on the radar for Kobe's back. We know Shared Belief is pointing to that race. We say goodnight. We are dark, or we're dark on Sunday. That means an extra study day with that $89,000 Pick 6 carryover. Always a good time with the boys here in the studio. We thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Racing Report. Big day for Rudy. Good to see Dad's Caps and back-to-back Carter wins. And we'll see you this coming Wednesday at the Big A with the first race post of 120.